sick of hearing about them, but I can't get away from them. They're everywhere, in my face. Look, Kyle, we just kind of don't care about some dumb prince and his
extraordinary cover feature on Harper's Bazaar with Meghan Markle.
It started as a carefully orchestrated symphony of soft lighting, muted tones, and high-fashion posturing, but it ended as a cacophony of digital laughter that echoed around the world. We need to talk about the absolute collision course that took place between the carefully curated world of Meghan Markle's public relations team and the ruthless, unsparing satire of South Park. It is a story of expectation versus reality, of a grand comeback curdling into a global punchline.
Apparently, Meghan Markle is now on the cover of Harper's Bazaar. Okay, she's on the cover of Harper's Bazaar.
And the sheer panic that ensues when a narrative you have spent millions building is dismantled by construction paper cutouts in less than 22 minutes. The setup was supposed to be flawless. Everything Meghan built leading up to this month was designed to be untouchable. The Harper's Bazaar shoot was the centerpiece of this strategy.
And look, South Park is known for satire and for mocking people. No one is safe. This isn't the first time they've done an episode on the royal family, but this particular episode was quite scathing in the grains of truth that it held. And I'm not sure how the Sussexes are taking it. Obviously, it is.
It had it all. The perfect lighting design to soften every edge, the slow, graceful poses that screamed comeback, and a tone that was supposed to mark her grand return to the spotlight as a serious, global icon. It was a royal-style redemption story, polished down to the very last molecular detail. The interview read like a modern fairy tale, portraying her as a woman bravely fighting to reclaim her truth, her voice.
And she's going, what are you writing about? I said, she's given this interview to Harper's Bazaar magazine.
I'm sorry, I'm just really stressed. We're completely out of money.
Maybe it's time we dip into your fortune from Suits.
There is no fortune from Suits.
They will sell anything about their privacy, and yet they'll fight privacy battle after privacy battle.
That is just what's happened overnight with this.
And her power in the public eye. For a brief, fleeting moment, it actually seemed to be working. The aesthetic was there, the words were heavy with import, and the narrative was set. People were starting to consume the story exactly as it was served. But then, South Park saw IT. IT wasn't just that they made a joke. It was that they ripped the entire fantasy to shreds with surgical precision. Within days of the magazine hitting the newsstands, the show turned what was meant to be a moment of triumph into one of their most ruthless, cold-blooded parodies in years. They didn't just mock her words. They went after the entire I'm Reborn act. They targeted the dramatic tone, the exaggerated self-importance, and the self-serious royal imagery that the magazine had worked so hard to construct. Nothing was spared. And the worst part for the Sussex camp wasn't the cruelty of the jokes. It was that millions of people laughed because they agreed with every single frame. The magazine piece was undeniably bizarre. It painted a picture of someone so detached from reality that they had become a caricature of themselves, and South Park simply held up a mirror. The writers at South Park didn't have to invent much. They just had to amplify what was already screaming from the pages of Harper's Bazaar. The interview in the magazine didn't sound like a conversation with a human being. It sounded like a prophecy. Every sentence was drenched in this grand royal energy, painting Meghan as a misunderstood genius, a modern-day princess battling a world too cruel to recognize her brilliance. But there was one line that changed everything, the assertion that Meghan is the true voice of modern royalty. That single sentence exploded online, providing the kind of ammunition that satirists dream of. People mocked it, quoted it, and turned it into meme material faster than her PR team could blink. South Park's genius lies in their ability to detect the artificial. They aimed straight for the weak spot Meghan didn't even know she had, the mockery of what feels fake, overproduced, and screaming for attention. The Harper's Bazaar interview had every single one of those qualities. When the episode dropped, inspired directly by this comeback, the internet absolutely exploded. This wasn't light teasing or a gentle ribbing, it was a full-on roast. The show recreated Meghan's intense photo shoot energy, with exaggerated sad eyes and over-the-top slow breathing, mimicking the pretentious nature of the candid shots. They twisted the serious, poetic tone of her interview into hilarious fake quotes that sounded like motivational posters gone wrong. It was brutal, but it was also brilliant. One of the sharpest gags involved the cartoon version of Meghan giving a passionate speech about wanting privacy, all while a blinding spotlight followed her every move. Each time she yelled, "I just want to be left alone," another camera would pop up behind her. Fans immediately caught the irony, as it mirrored her real-life pattern of demanding privacy right before launching another headline-grabbing interview or documentary. Then came the ultimate visual jab, the Harper's Bazaar shoot itself. South Park animated her standing dramatically in the wind, wearing a nearly identical gown to the real magazine cover. While reporters debated the symbolism of her posing for a crown she never actually received, fans shared side-by-side comparisons, stunned at how accurate and painfully savage the parody turned out to be. The coldest blow, however, came during a scene that mirrored the real interview almost word for word. The animated interviewer praised her with the same flowery lines found in the magazine, but instead of applause or awe, the cartoon audience just stared, blank, confused, and unimpressed. That moment hit harder than any punchline because it revealed the underlying truth. The interview wasn't reaching real people. It was only connecting with her own PR fantasy. Inside her inner circle, panic reportedly spread faster than the clips themselves. Insiders suggested that Meghan felt personally targeted, not just by the animation, but by the realization that millions suddenly saw her glossy comeback as high comedy. She reportedly told her team that the writers had twisted her message, unable to understand how something meant to empower her had turned into an instrument of global humiliation. The satire cut through the noise because it echoed what many were already whispering but hadn't quite articulated. The parody went viral because it validated the public's exhaustion. Meghan wasn't ready to face that reality. Her team allegedly begged her to stay quiet, warning that any public reaction would only fuel the fire. They knew that silence was the safest move, even if silence made her look defeated. And Meghan, by all accounts, despises looking powerless more than anything. But the breaking point wasn't just the cartoon, it was the ripple effect. Late-night hosts joined in, sensing blood in the water. There were more jokes, more memes, and endless comparisons between the South Park scenes and the Harper's Bazaar photos. It was everywhere. And while fans debated online, a very real storm was brewing behind the closed doors of Hollywood. When a celebrity becomes a meme, executives start watching. Multiple producers, brand partners, and streaming heads reportedly tuned into the South Park episode, not out of sympathy, but out of cold, hard curiosity. They wanted to see if Meghan had become a liability. In Hollywood, toxicity is the worst reputation of all. When laughter turns into hesitation, the industry quietly starts to pull back. Getting mocked by South Park isn't just bad luck. It is a flashing red warning sign that the audience is tired, the image is overcooked, and the celebrity has drifted into self-parody. Without realizing it, One insider noted that if South Park goes after you, the public is already halfway gone. That is what scared Hollywood the most. Executives didn't just laugh. They analyzed the interview itself, asking why it felt so theatrical, so staged, so painfully heavy. Some questioned whether Meghan's team even understood American viewers anymore. Viewers who crave authenticity, not poetic speeches about destiny and self-discovery delivered from a multi-million-dollar estate. Others whispered that she seemed stuck in a never-ending loop of reinvention, each one louder, glossier, and more desperate than the last. The credibility gap opened wide. The Harper's Bazaar piece used big, dramatic words like rebirth, purpose, and misunderstood to describe everyday moments. It didn't sound like a grounded woman sharing her truth. It sounded like a script. That is why the parody hit differently. It wasn't just a joke about a celebrity. It was a mirror showing exactly what the public already thought but hadn't said out loud. South Park nailed the grand speeches, the heroic self-image, and the endless need to be both victim and visionary at the same time. They stripped away the glamour and showed the uncomfortable truth behind the brand. This leads to the real danger: brand damage. Meghan has spent years trying to position herself as more than a celebrity, as someone important, historic, and icon. But this parody flipped that narrative overnight. Suddenly, she wasn't the icon. She was the punchline. Once the public starts seeing you as a meme, it is nearly impossible to undo. That is Meghan's biggest fear. This scandal doesn't fade. It lingers. South Park parodies live forever online. Clips get reposted for years. Memes never disappear. Every time Meghan tries to reintroduce herself with a new project, people will dig up those scenes, compare them to her latest interview, and laugh all over again. The Harper's Bazaar interview was supposed to mark a new era for her. Instead, it might have slammed the very door she needed open, and Meghan wasn't the only one caught in the crossfire. Prince Harry got dragged right into it, and the show didn't paint him as a villain. It made him something arguably worse, a lost passenger in his own story. Cartoon Harry followed Meghan around like her shadow, repeating her slogans, mimicking her mood, and reacting like a man who no longer had control of his own narrative. Insiders claim that when Harry saw the clips, or at least heard about them. He didn't explode in anger.